Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. He is a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for making time for us. So can you tell us, have you been briefed on what has happened inside both Israel and the Gaza Strip as of this evening? Do you have any updates that you can share with us on what we've learned in terms of the scale and scope of this operation?
No, we're actually going to get a full-scale briefing in the classified setting and in the secure facilities in Washington when we go back. Right now, we are basically receiving more of the unclassified information that is accessible to everybody at this point.
We've been hearing the comments and the reporting to suggest that there may be capabilities that the United States has that it can share with its Israeli counterparts. Can you shed any light on what that might be and how soon that might be shared with the Israelis?
I think that it's being shared right now. I think that this is something that is a top priority for U.S. officials. Look, Eamon, I think your viewers and you know extremely well the urgency of locating and getting those hostages back from Gaza Strip. I think that's priority number one. There's tremendous pressure on the Prime Minister to respond right now, but at the same time, he and his government have to be thinking very carefully about how any operation would impact the welfare of those hostages. And so I think priority one is that. I think a big second priority is trying to prevent any further attacks, especially from other terrorist groups, Iran-backed groups like Hezbollah in the north. And of course, trying to figure out whether Iran had a hand in any of this.
How do you go about assessing that? I mean, what do you think the administration should be doing right now in assessing whether or not Iran had any specific role in this, but more importantly, the points that you raised, which is the decision-making process within Israel to not jeopardize the safety of those taken inside Gaza or the Palestinians that are inside Gaza, or at the same time, further operations from militant groups against Israel?
Well, Eamon, these are incredibly complicated questions. I think that in past scenarios, our analysts do an excellent job of going back to try to figure out what was missed in the collection that might have given clues as to what we saw today, and then trying to look forward to see if what they've learned could be applied to the collection happening right now to see if we can plug any holes and maybe foreshadow or foresee what's coming. But this is all a very time-intensive endeavor. On top of all that, I'm sure that our excellent partners and allies and friends across the region and around the world are being enlisted to help in this effort because at this point, I think everybody is thinking very hard about what happened today and preventing it from happening again. I think most countries, our friends, partners, and allies were shocked by what happened and stand solidly with Israel as it tries to respond.
You say to prevent something like this from happening again. I mean, is there a chance that we can return to the status quo? And if not, what fundamentally has to change? What do you think, as a member of the U.S. Congress, which gives billions of dollars in aid to Israel and supports the Palestinian Authority, and part of the American government, which is heavily invested in this conflict, what do you think fundamentally needs to change so something like this does not happen again?
Well, look, as you know, the immediate task at hand is to deal with what is transpiring real time on the ground. But in the medium and long term, we have to recognize that what the terrorists, in part, were trying to do was to destroy any chance of a lasting peace agreement that is being fashioned among the different parties. They are deathly afraid of, the United States brokering agreement with the Saudis and Israel and the Palestinians, especially in the West Bank. And we can't let them thwart those efforts. So I think that although today we have to be 100% laser focused on dealing with the hostages, dealing with the terrorists, cleansing Israel of these terrorists and preventing further attacks, in the medium and long term, we have to return to the project of bringing true stability in that area.
So just to make sure I understand it clear, do you believe that part of the reason Hamas carried out today's attack was to thwart a possible Saudi-Israeli peace deal?
I believe so. I haven't seen evidence of communications to that extent, and I'll be looking for that when I go back to Washington, D.C. But I think the main point is that Hamas has been on the outs, as you know, for a long time, ever since Israel left the Gaza Strip a very long time ago. They've been further isolated. They've become very much a proxy of the Iranians. And as you also know, many players in the region want to try to come together in a peace agreement, in part to deal with the threats posed by the Iranians. And so it would not be a surprise or a stretch to think that Hamas would fear any kind of lasting peace deal that the Americans are brokering in the region between these other parties.
So when you look at it from an intelligence perspective, and Israeli officials have talked about the operations they've carried out going as far back as 2008 in Operation Cast Lead, then again 2012, 2014, and more recently 2021. Those operations at the time Israel described them as being successful for having weakened and destroyed Hamas. But as we can clearly see from today, that is not the case. So I guess what has to be done to change that dynamic? What changes in order to prevent something like this from happening again? If Hamas is just getting stronger year after year, despite Israel going in and, as they say, mowing the lawn?
Well, obviously weeds have grown in that lawn, and I think that at this point we have to, probably go back and figure out what did we miss as we were trying to gather intelligence about Hamas. What was it that they were able to marshal in terms of resources, as well as from whom did they get these resources, and then try to plug those holes as best as we can. But until we get the answers to those first questions, it's hard to determine exactly what the next steps are to prevent this from happening again with regard to Hamas.
All right, Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time.